Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got apologies from Councillors Jackwin, Metcalfe, Whitaker, and you've provided them for Councillor Madeley. Thank you. And so could I just do a quick roll call?
Please.
Just present. So if I just call your name out, if you could just say that you're present, please. Chairman, you're present?
Yes, present.
Don't appear to have Councillor Handley at the moment, or Councillor Heseltine. Councillor Ireton?
Present.
Councillor Moorby?
Present.
Councillor Mulligan?
Present.
And Councillor Soloway?
Present, but just for point of order, I think Councillor Heseltine is also at the Skipton Town Council.
Okay, I'll record his apologies then.
Where I should be, but I've chosen licensing because...
Okay, I'll record his apologies. Thank you, Councillor Soloway. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
That's great. And a very happy New Year to everyone, which I think is probably the first council meeting of the new year. So very nice to see everyone in yet again very frustrating and difficult times. It was inevitable that we'd end up where we are. I think we can just hope that people follow the guidelines and stay safe, and that we get on top of this, even in Craven, vigorous burst of the pandemic. So I'm sure people are very well aware of it. Declarations of interest, I'm sure we don't have any. Now, Tim, I was rereading your report today on the first item on the agenda, the first material item. And I thought how nice it would have been to have been writing that in December, thinking that Craven was in Tier 2 and that the pubs were open and we were going to have a jolly Christmas and a jolly New Year, and that taxi drivers would be able to make some money. And lo and behold, that soon went to pot. So, I mean, Tim, I'm sure everybody here has read the report.
Yeah. Councillor Myers, sorry to interrupt. Could we just approve the minutes, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. My anxiety to be on. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Everybody happy with the minutes? Somebody propose in second. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry, Vicky. I'm most unorderly. It's very, very poor. But Tim. So as I was saying, if you just summarise kind of where we're at with our cameras in taxis policy and its implementation, and then we'll see what perhaps members have to say about things in the light of current.
Yes, I will, Chair. I just wanted to, for those who haven't, I've just asked Emma to join us today, who's joined our licensing team in September. So this is Emma Hayton's first attention.
Welcome, Emma.
Just wanted to welcome her and brought her on to see what things were about.
Very good to see we're up to strength, actually, because poor Tim has been overstretched and...
she's getting up to speed, and she's,
we need.
I think she's enjoyed things thus far in a very challenging period to join a team. I don't envy you in some ways. It's been, but no, very pleased to have her on board. So yeah, as you said, I'm sure members have read the report. I won't go into too much detail of it. This was off the back of October. Obviously, members at the time, in a different light, made a decision regarding CCTV implementation. That was for new vehicles to have CCTV from the 1st of January 2021, any vehicle not currently licensed, and initially any vehicle currently licensed from April the 1st. In short, this is to ask members, do they want to stick by that proposal? Given that yesterday, Boris Johnson obviously brought out the new restrictions on freedom of movement, and obviously in December, escalated Craven into a higher tier, placing further restrictions on the nighttime economy. Yeah. I'm sure members have been watching the news and are just up to speed with obviously the national pandemic.
Yes, so members are very interested to hear what members have to say. I think Tim's report was spot on. Having no more of a crystal ball than the Prime Minister, our licensing manager wrote a very good report back in December when things looked a bit more rosy for everyone. But we are where we are. If I can simply convey what Councillor Madeley thought, he had to attend a council meeting, but was anxious for me to know and share his views, which were that it's the right policy, but we're back where we were in, perhaps was it March or April, when we first discussed this in the light of the pandemic, and we need to put it. It looks like we'll be in lockdown till mid-March, and it will take time for it to recover. Because for the taxi trade to be without licensed premises and without school runs means they're largely without work. So anyway, those were his views, but I'm very interested. Anybody thoughts on it? What we should do? Yes, Councillor Ireton.
Just muted at the moment.
Yep, you're muted.
Chairman, can I just point out there's several hands raised in the participants?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. Yeah, I haven't got that up quite right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So, Councillor Ireton first, anyway, if I may. David, you're muted.
Yeah, I think I'm right now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could perhaps you or Tim remind me, what was the cost of installing these cameras into the taxis?
Tim, can you?
You're looking at, depending on the provider and the number of cameras, between £350 and £500 per vehicle.
Yeah. And how many taxis do we have licensed that would fall into this category of requiring the installation of these cameras?
So at the moment it's slightly dropped off. We've got about 130 Hackney carriages and about 15 private hire. So you can about 140-ish that would need cameras. A couple through their own decision do have cameras installed already. But that's 2 or 3.
Yeah, because it is an important part of our licensing structure, isn't it, that we've taken the decision to have cameras in. And I think those that actually sit on appeals, licensing appeals, would recognise how important it is for the drivers to have these cameras installed. I know it is a difficult time with the lockdown again. It is mentioned in the report about schools, and since the reopening of schools in September, I would think, and Patrick may be able to help us out on this, but I would imagine that anyone with a school contract will be getting paid because they'll be under contract to North Yorkshire County Council. So I don't think perhaps the lockdown would affect that payment. I don't know whether Patrick has any views on that as executive member of Schools for North Yorkshire, whether that perhaps doesn't fall within his remit. I'm keen that these cameras should be getting installed. And if there's anyone that is suffering hardship, true hardship through this, the £350, £400, is there any way that the authority can do that, and then with a standing order that they pay this back on a monthly basis?
I just want to, sorry, just slightly correct myself. It's £450 to £650 for cameras.
Right.
Sorry, I was wrong with the lower figure of £350.
Right. We're looking probably £500, aren't we?
Just
£10 a week, isn't it?
I can't comment on what's happened now. I know in March with school contracts, they were paid 100% to the end of term, but that was back in June, July time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine, that they are under contract in North Yorkshire, so therefore they will be getting paid those contracts. That doesn't, of course, affect income from the nighttime economy, which they will be losing. But I am keen, as a member of the Licence Committee, to see that these cameras are installed. We keep deferring it and deferring it. And whether we need to look at some form of helping them to finance this with, I say, it's £10 a week, isn't it? £500, £520 a year, £10 a week. So is that a possibility for anyone that is suffering real hardship through this? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ireton. Well, Councillor Mulligan has his hand up, and of course, he's the man to answer that question. We have lots of money lying about, Patrick, that we could lend to people.
I wish.
And are you willing to commit to it just now like that?
We'd have to investigate, I have to say. I agree with some of the things Councillor Ireton said. I do get a sense of deja vu that this keeps coming back every meeting we have, and we keep, because of COVID, obviously, we keep sort of kicking it down the road. As to David's point about North Yorkshire, I know that we support the bus companies in terms of subsidy, because that's a massive thing for the companies that if they might go under if we weren't supporting those contracts. I'd have to look into individual taxi drivers, because they might be qualifying. I think it's in 4.3 that they get financial assistance from the government through the furlough scheme, or because they're self-employed. So I think that's a different situation, but I would have to actually look into that. I'm very ambivalent about this. I do understand the situation that the taxi drivers are in. I also understand Councillor Ireton's point that we keep delaying this, and that in 4.3 it does say that the taxi drivers have been getting support from the government, so they're not entirely without an income. I don't know. I can't quite decide, frankly, Chairman. I think it's really a tough one. I'd like to hear from other members.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mulligan. I think very fairly. Apologise for my dogs playing. They're still in the Christmas spirit. But it isn't an easy one. But perhaps Councillor Morby and then Councillor Soloway can show us the way.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm of the same opinion as David. We keep putting it off, and I can understand why we keep putting it off, because I wouldn't like to be in a position of the taxi drivers at the moment, but things will get better. And if there is some form, Patrick, that we can make easy payments, as David says, £10 a week, that would be fine, and it'd be great. David did mention about being on hearings and appeals committee. Well, we were both on one just recently, and there was another authority which has, I think it was Rossendale, have CCTV cameras fitted, and it actually helped us, I think, decide on the outcome of this case. And although we aren't getting as many, thankfully now, hearings and appeals, they do help us, and they help the taxi drivers if it goes the other way. So yes, I think if we can, it does need looking into to help them if we can. But I am in full favour of getting CCTVs as soon as possible, because I think it would help us immensely. I really do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very much in. I think this has been sort of moved down the road because of COVID, but I'd like to sort of put a more positive spin on this, because we're going to come out of this pandemic. We've got to, society's got to, whether that happens in 6 months' time or 9 months' time or 3 months' time, we are going to come back there, and they are predicting a big bounce back. I can fully imagine that when the virus recedes as much as we possibly can, because it won't entirely go away, people will hit the nighttime economy with a vengeance, and the economy, maybe for a short time, maybe for a long time, will bounce back. There'll be a lot of spending power, and people will relish their freedom again. The other thing is that with COVID, there are new restrictions. For example, when you get in a taxi, you are required to wear a mask. And if you have a customer who refuses to wear a mask, you have a right, as surely as a taxi driver, to refuse that fare, and your CCTV will highlight that. If we look towards technology that allows people to have immunity certificates that allow them to frequent certain areas, the taxi driver could ask to see that before they get in their cab, and the CCTV will help that. COVID has actually put new rules and new kind of restrictions on people in terms of wearing masks and in terms of their behaviour and social distancing. And I think CCTV will help, actually. So I don't want to kick it too far down the road. I know there is a hardship issue, but taxi drivers will be getting furloughed, and we should be thinking to the future of coming out of this pandemic and having CCTV in the taxis ready to go, ready for when people start using taxis more again, and help the drivers. And I also echo what David and Chris say. Yes, there's been a number of other cases with appeals where CCTV has helped us come to our decision, and not always against granting a license, but often in favour of granting a license. CCTV footage did help in another case. So I don't want to kick it too far down the line. I think CCTV is very much needed in taxis, really is.
Thanks very much, Andy. All very helpful. I mean, I absolutely agree with members, as indeed did Councillor Madeley, that we brought policy in for very good reason. The protection of the public, of course, but it's also for the protection of taxi drivers, and not just in the sort of disputes that come before our subcommittees, although, as members have said, it's very helpful there. But we know that one of the risks of flying for hire reward in the nighttime economy is regrettably abuse and racist abuse and damage. And we would like to protect our taxi drivers from that. We don't think they should put up, which they have done in the past for too long. So there are very, very good reasons for bringing it in. I also, members are right, and Tim very helpfully in highlighting the available support for taxi drivers from either furloughing or the grants available to the self-employed, and actually our discretionary grants in lockdown did give money to a number of taxi drivers, because I had to go through them all, so I saw sort of what went where. On the other hand, of course, people have families to keep, and getting 80% of your income takes the jam off, doesn't it? And people still have rents and mortgages and so on. So we wouldn't certainly be right in thinking people are going to be flushed. They're not. I think the sort of best compromise position would be this. Myself and members agrees, that'd be great. Instead of bringing it in April, I think we should say it on the basis that we're probably in lockdown till March, that it comes in on the 1st of June. And that will give people a bit of time to get going again. The vaccine will have been rolled out. It won't have gone everywhere, but it will have certainly resulted in the lifting of a number of restrictions, I would like to think. It also means if things carry on and we're still locked down or whatever, we've got time to reconsider it again. And we could maybe see if there's any way we could, just for administration, help out those who need support. I am conscious of the fact, one of the things that sways me slightly is what is in place is, and I'm not inclined to lift it, is the fact that any new applicants have to have this in place now. From the 1st of January, that's in place. And I don't know why we should prejudice new applicants against, people who are hoping to earn a living, taxi drivers, against those who have earned a living, possibly for a number of years. So it would seem to me to be unfair to kick it too far down the line. But I do just wonder if April, given the likely timetable on lockdown, too early, and we should give it. I'm very happy to go with whatever members think. Really, I think it is a difficult one. We have sympathy for them, but this policy is there for a reason. And,
Chair,
and we've been talking about it for 3 years, actually, 4 years. So it's not like people haven't had notice. We went through it in great detail, as Mr. Strickland will well remember, Councillor Morby, Councillor Madeley, we spent hours talking about taxes. We talked about little else since, apart from brief diversions on caravan licensing, which is our new fixation. But yeah, so I mean, it has been on the cards for a long time. Tim.
Yeah, just to underline, just before Tim comes in, the two things on the recommendation. There's the date in terms of the new ones coming in, which will either be 1st of April, 1st of June, or whatever members decide. And then there's the second part of the recommendation for new drivers. And I think Tim will have something to say on that in terms of maybe ensuring that stays in place as a marker to keep the policy and ensure that everybody understands.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I mean, for me, and I think sort of looking on the screen at the nods of members, I have no inclination to move that date for new drivers.
Just to clarify, at the moment, it's not new drivers, it's any new vehicle that's not previously been licensed. So if someone was currently working and bought a new car and licensed that one, it's from that vehicle. So any vehicle currently licensed prior to the end of December, obviously the date that you as members chose, that would be affecting them still. And any brand new grant application, that's currently from the 1st of January, not renewals.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be inclined to move that, but so members, what any thoughts on a date? I think we're all in agreement. Give one, and that it shouldn't be at the end of this year, it should be before then. So how does June sound? Or do you want April? Come on, somebody. Otherwise, I'm going to say it's June, and you can all agree with me.
I take on board what Andy said. We've got vaccinations rolling out very quickly. All right, we've got the epidemic rolling out very quickly, but we will beat it, and we are looking towards Easter, right, which is April, where the majority of people will be vaccinated, then I think, Andy says, I think the restrictions will be lifted, possibly before then, and lifted quite well. So I think the nighttime economy might just start there. Of course, we haven't got a crystal ball, but I have a feeling that it will start. And as Andy was saying, then people will go a bit mad going out. And it doesn't bother me totally whether it's April or June. I would prefer April. But I'm happy to go with June, so long as we keep going forwards with it, whatever we do. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Any firm views? Tim, your hand's still up, is that?
Oh, sorry, yeah, that was from before.
Okay.
I will lower my hand.
Thank you. Councillor Ireton.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it is a difficult one. But like you say, it's been going on for 3 years as it's now. And I think we've had COVID, have we, for 12 months. So there's been 2 years that it's been going on before we were in lockdown. And you would have expected any business to prepare for new legislations that come forward. I'm not too concerned whether it's April or June. I would really like to bottom whether the authority can help anyone that is in desperate need financially of being able to fix these cameras. And there must be a mechanism where that could be linked to a monthly payment to recover the cost of that, which would be a great help, I would think, to some drivers. I say I will go with whichever date is moved.
I mean, actually,
but if it is June, I do really think that this has got to be the last time we move it, because we just keep moving it and moving it and moving it. And I know there's exceptional circumstances. We don't have any financial details to know whether this £500 is sort of so detrimental to the taxi drivers. I know it's a burden, like any business, it's a burden. When I was running a business, legislation would come in and you think, well, I could do without that cost. But you paid the license and that was it. You had no option. Yeah. So I'll wait to see what's moved.
I think just on that, I think we could look at it as a mechanism for us to, to help some way with. I think it could be very difficult because it will run into procurement and all sorts of that the council really don't need to be involved in, which will make it more complicated and no doubt, as everything in the public sector, more expensive. So I have some reservations about that. But what does strike me, and it's something that there are two other things. One is the drivers will be eligible for bounce back loans, and they are 0% for 12 months. So you could borrow £500 from the government with no security, with no repercussions, because it's guaranteed by the government and you can pay it back at any time during the first 12 months without paying any interest. So that is available to everyone.
Well, with that said, Chairman, we should stick at April.
And the second thing I would say is, and I don't know the answer to this, and I certainly wouldn't suggest for a moment that it is possible or impossible, but might be worth taxi drivers exploring is some of the grants that we have available to help businesses recover from COVID. It might just fit into some eligibility for some of that. I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other, but if I was a taxi driver, I'd be looking at it and seeing whether they may be eligible grants to help. We have funds available, not masses, but we do have. So Andy Soloway, I think, was next, and then Patrick, and then Alex.
I'm still inclined to stick with April because, as I said before, yes, hopefully lockdown restrictions will be eased. But on the other hand, we might have a gradual easing of them, and I think we will still end up with the state of mind where masks have to be worn on public transport and in taxis. At the moment, buses, if you get onto a bus, there's CCTV camera, and if you get on without a mask without good reason, you will be challenged for it, and there'll be CCTV cameras to stop that. At the moment, there will be another conflict point between taxi drivers and potentially awkward customers who are not going to get in. I'm not getting in your cab with a mask on. I've forgotten it, I've dropped it, or whatever. And that will help the taxi drivers. It will help us have a safe, COVID secure fleet of taxis that people will feel confident getting into as well. Because I think probably we're going to be wearing masks till well into the summer, even if the vaccines are rolled out. I also think that if we do end up with the lockdown restrictions very, very quickly falling away, no one can predict anything. Like I say, we will have a large influx of people who will be using our taxis a lot more because there is still that element of people feeling a bit unsafe on a bus, and people are using taxis more because a lot of bus services have been withdrawn. So I think there's a new clientele using taxis in the run up to lockdown. People who used to use buses. So I think it's good to have these CCTV cameras in. We've been talking about it for a long time, spent a lot of time debating it. And I don't want to push it too far down the line. Any help that they can have, fair enough. But bear in mind, quite a lot of taxi drivers will have spent some money making their taxis COVID secure and spending money on that. So CCTV, yes, it's a fair investment, but it's used in lots of other authorities whose taxis have had CCTV in for a long time and don't think anything else of.
Yes, thanks, Andy. Patrick, next.
Thank you, Chairman. I would favor either date. I'm not that bothered about the date. The only thing I would say is if we did go for the April date, I have a slight concern about burdening our financial officers with introducing a scheme and administering it. I think this is the time of year going right up till April where we are doing our budget setting and they're flat out. And I wouldn't want to say, oh, by the way, could you come up with a scheme for the taxi drivers that have a hardship, option. So if we were going to go down that route, I would prefer the June 1st date, but that's up to the committee.
Yeah, Patrick, that's a good point. If I could just put in my on the dates, the real reason I suggested June is because I am, with some fairly optimistic prognostication around this Zoom meeting as to how quickly things will get better. What I don't want to do is find they don't get better in mid-March, that we're still locked down or that we're in tier 4 and the pubs are shut, and then have to have another meeting, on the basis that we made a decision on the basis we thought the economy would open up again in the middle of March. So that was really my reason for suggesting June. But I get Patrick's point as well. If we're going to look at a scheme, it would certainly take time, and our officers have far too much on generally at the moment. But I'm very happy with whatever members. Chris, Councillor Morley. You're muted, Chris.
No,
you're still muted, Chris. Yeah.
Am I right now? It was just what you were saying, Simon, about government aid that will be available. And I take on board what Patrick says. So would the government aid go through Craven District Council, or would they apply direct to the government?
Chris, if they were going for the bounce back loan, which can be any sum up to £50,000, they do that through their banks. Very straightforward, and it takes no time. So that's nothing to do with us. If we were exploring whether they may fit into some of the criteria for our discretionary grants, and I'm not saying they would or they wouldn't, that's something that our officers would have to look at, armed with the guidelines from the government and the guidelines we've set. So that would take time. If we're going to come up with an independent sort of loan scheme of our own, I'm very happy that Patrick's here, because he could suggest it to Richard Way, and I would just duck and stick my fingers in my ears and hum, because the officers have so much on. They'll have all the new grants to administer, the business grants that are going to be rolled out by the Chancellor. The discretionary grants. They've all the protocols to work out. It's an enormous amount of work, as members know, on top of doing what they do 5 days a week and keeping the council running. It's extra work for the same people. So I would be loath to, in a way, burden them. We could have a quiet word, but if I was borrowing money to pay for this, I'd go for the bounce back loan, interest free. Whereas whatever we do, we're going to have to charge something, because we can't give away our ratepayers' money, subsidised taxi drivers. So there'd be an additional element of cost in it. Whereas the bounce back loans cost nought. They don't give you any personal liability at all. So they're very easy to access, I believe.
Following those comments, Simon, yeah. I would be apt to go for April, and I have only just learnt about this loan from yourself tonight. Yeah. So the taxi drivers probably don't know anything about it. But if it's interest free,
I think it's available up till. Does anybody apart from me know? I mean, there's no reason you should. Is it available up to the end of January, or is it March?
I should imagine there'll be new ones introduced.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But it is a very good scheme for businesses, and
if that is available for them, there is no need for Craven to step in for hardship.
So I think what we might do is, it's because none of us are experts, but certainly, Patrick, if you have a moment with Richard, just to ask him if his understanding is they would be eligible for bounce back loans. And that would give us some comfort, actually. There is, interest-free funding.
31st of March 2021 is the.
Oh, is it? Right. Well, there you are.
This is a quick look on the government, central government.
No, that sounds right to me. It came in March. I think it was a 12-month scheme. So,
therefore, there's help out there for them to do this.
Yeah.
So, we should stick at April and make a decision and stick by it.
Right. No, is that everybody apart from Alex? Yeah. Alex.
Yeah, Chair, just to make the point that should members decide on this on whatever date, it will then become an enforcement issue. And I suspect, and Tim may wish to comment on this, I suspect that should we get into a situation where somebody was in real hardship and they come to us and pleaded a specific case, that we would look at it and that we would not take a hard line on enforcement on any particular case. It may well be that there might be schemes available. There might be local things that we can do. They might be eligible for various forms of assistance centrally. But I suspect if somebody come to us and said, I have got real difficulty on this, that we would look at it as an enforcement issue and would take a view on the particular case.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you saying that, actually, Alex, because I'm sure we would. We are not. We're not there to make taxi drivers' lives difficult. We want the taxi trade to thrive, but we do think this is an important policy that we actually first started talking. I had more hair, and there wasn't Zoom to highlight proceeding. But there we go. Yeah. So I think we seem to have a consensus on that, members. So. I think points 1 and 2 are I'll move them. If somebody could, and then we'll take seconded by Councillor Morby, Vicky, and then if we could take a vote by name call, Vicky on.
Yes, Chair. So this is to keep the date as the 1st of April.
Yeah, it's the two. It's to keep the 1st of April and the 1st of January.
1st of January. Yeah, and to approve the policy which is set out in Appendix A. So if I just call your name out, please. Chairman?
Or.
Councillor Ireton?
You're still muted, David.
You're muted, Councillor Ireton.
Itself for some reason. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Morby?
4.
Councillor Mulligan?
4.
And Councillor Soloway?
4.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you, Tim, for that report. You know, there's lots to think about, isn't there? But I think Alex made a very good point. We're not bloody minded. You know, we're here to make it work, and we're not going to punish people who are in difficulty.
As with anything, Chair, any driver who approaches and discusses on any situation, we'll always work with them.
Yes, of course. If
there's an open dialogue, then we're always happy to work with training.
And you can always come back to the committee if there are problems, or, you know, the subcommittee if that's required. So we're to help. Right. And the second item is a quick verbal update for us to note. Alex.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just following on from the last committee in October, you'll remember that we were looking to present a report to this committee. Following on from the very useful training session that members had on the caravan site licensing, I have gone back to the environmental health people and also to the planning people to discuss this in more detail. There is actually a lot of work going on in the background in respect of reviewing the position that we've currently got with respect to this, particularly with respect to conditions and model conditions, and looking at that against what is currently best practice to ensure that we've got a set of conditions on those licenses that actually work. The second issue that's being looked at is really around the delegated powers and the delegated functions. At the moment, of course, the functions are split. And there needs to be a look at how that works and how that might work better, whether that will require any formal alteration of those powers or whether it will simply be improved communication and improved understanding on how planning and licensing work, which I think was one of the things that come out of the training. We need to look at that. And the third issue that is being looked at is around enforcement and in terms of how that can be dealt with on those site licenses, also taking into account the planning position as well. So what is currently happening at the moment is we are in a position whereby planning, environmental health and legal have set up a group to actually look at this with the view to presenting a report back to members at the next committee on the 6th of April, with the hope also that that will be accompanied by a presentation from Richard Abdullah in Environmental Health with regards to caravan site licensing generally, that should actually build upon the previous training that members have had. So hopefully at that meeting, we should then get a report which will give a proposal in terms of the standards and the standards that can be used. We'll give a view in terms of the delegated powers, and we'll give a view in terms of enforcement, coupled with some sort of extra training as well in terms of that presentation. And hopefully then that should then give members a way forward on this sort of general review issue. And I would also propose as well, because there's various meetings of this sort of officer group which will take place between now and April. And I will propose as well, Chairman, just to keep you in the loop on that, just so as you're updated as well. And hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Alex. Very helpful. And I must say that training day was very helpful. I think members, and not just licensing committee members, found it very, very useful too. It's very important we get this right, and I think we're right to look at it. I think we do need to have a fresh look at the best way of updating our policies, and also, quite where the sort of cookie crumbles, who's really, who's the best to have the delegated powers on this, and who's best to keep an overview of it. I think that sort of workshop or whatever really highlighted that issue. So I realise it's a big job, and it's a big job for officers. So the main thing is we get it right and we get it done sooner rather than later. But there's no criticism at all for it not being in front of us today. It's a bigger job than that. But as long as it's on track, I'm for one very happy to hear it's progressing. Members have anything they'd like to add to that? Or? Happy to note that then, members. Yep. Great. Lovely. Well, thanks, Alex, and thanks to all those involved.
Thank you.
And I think, unless there's any other business, that is the end of our meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Tim and Vicky, and welcome again to Emma. They're not always this quick, sadly. but we're one of the more efficient committees, actually. So yeah, no, great. It would be great to have you working. And no doubt there'll be plenty of work the minute. Well, I know there's plenty of work now, but there'll be plenty when lockdown is eased.
Just being kept busy.
Yeah, there'll be a lot to be getting on with. So so thank you very much, members. Happy New Year. Glad to see you looking a bit better, Councillor Morby.